This is for all my haters who need a better world, and for people who love truth and reality and need truth and reality, and for all those who want a better world. My views on uh, regulating drugs are not complete. I'm not confident in every answer I have, but it's really this simple. I am saying we should probably legalize trees, leaves, and teas. And then I think you would have drug cartels quitting their jobs and getting a better one. And I think you should outlaw stealing. I think we should outlaw stealing. And those coincide. Our sabotage laws have hired cartels who deal only the strongest forms of natural medicines. There's more to it. I think they should make people maybe take classes in nutrition to be authorized to drink a tea. And then you classify caffeine products into that same category. And you need a doctor's prescription for a strong medicine. So a tea might have 2 leaves in it. Those strong medicines have concentrated forms of maybe 100 leaves. We have been deceived, and it is not a sin to use medicine. It is a sin. It becomes a sin to abuse it, but that's not for me to decide when you have gone over the line. But we can enforce bad behavior against bad behavior, such as stealing, killing, but we got to make stealing illegal and violence illegal, and not qualify stealing and violence because somebody wants to drink a tea, because they feel they need a medicine, a small pain reliever. I don't care how much you think it is bad to take Tylenol. I know people literally who talk like, I've never taken Tylenol in my life. And they've gotten this level of human perfection that makes them a god, like a god, the best man in the world. You don't have to be the best man in the world to find a girlfriend. I've been tricked into thinking that. I thought I had to be as good as Michael Jordan before I can get that, at basketball and other things, performance stuff, right? I'm not a good speaker. I have a terrible memory, especially recently. I don't know what's going on. I got something wrong with my voice, stiff throat, real stiff. Maybe it's quick weight gain. And you know what? And I've strived for perfection in performances and all that kind of stuff. I'm not a natural at it. So why waste my time? I won't say it's a waste of time. But walk in the Spirit. Stand up for the truth. Lean on your faith. Speak up for it. You don't have to be a genius like Charlie Kirk to speak up. And I don't agree with some things that he was taught, and that you have to, like if you're married, you don't have to write your wife a special letter every single day. You just live, man. You live, you love her, vice versa. And if you can do that, if you have the discipline to do that and find the time to do that in a busy schedule, well, it's easier to text, right? So, and that's not a knock on Charlie Kirk. I just learned some things about his views recently, and I like Charlie Kirk, and I thought he's one of the best things we've ever had. But I look at him like a prodigy. I have to look up the definition of prodigy. I don't remember those things. He's a genius about that. So I look at him like he's like a prodigy, but it's usually a child prodigy who can play the piano like a virtuoso pianist at age 3, age 4, they can already do that, or 5 or 6. And but he's a genius. There's what's good about a lot of pastors today. They're smart. They're like valedictorians. They can speak well and entertain. You don't have to be that good of a speaker to take a stand for truth. You support helping. You actually support and make people like Charlie Kirk not have to be out there alone and to become a target the way the Democrats try to make people become a target, because we echo the voices of Charlie Kirk's faith. Millions of people can do that, and you don't have to be smart, because I'm not. I'm the bad student, but people thought I was a decent student because I studied very hard. Had to study 4 hours for a test where other people could do it in 30 minutes and pass the test. The history test with memorizing facts and those things. But I couldn't pass can't even think of the word, a reading test, comprehension. I hardly ever could pass one of those. I think they were asking the wrong questions. And I have a knack to see things other people don't. But I had, for whatever reason, even most of the time I'm daydreaming while I'm reading. But I've had a few times where I'm like, I read this good, I was focused, I liked it, I'm going to pass this one. And I didn't pass it. I think they asked the wrong questions. But we don't have to be a genius like Charlie Kirk. You don't have to be the best man in the world to have a girlfriend. It's bullcrap. But I mean, you strive to be the best you can be. But as far as the standards go, it's competing to have the busiest schedule there is, working 3 and 4 jobs, and then still somehow being humble at the same time and having much prayer time. How do people multitask like that? That's a talent. If somebody can do that and stay focused, I have to contemplate and think and be humble, slow down sometimes to have the right answers. And but I've tried to work fast. People have seen me on the internet. See, I post a lot of other people's stuff, good stuff, and because I can't until I can think of something good that I could make myself to post it. Sometimes I've tried to do that in talking, and it's not too good. Or I've tried to write too much at once. But I made this video here was supposed to be a short 3-minute video, 2 minute, 1 minute. And here I go again, rambling. But at least I said what I wanted at the beginning. So I didn't want to go into describing why the science of all that is good and all, because people think it's a promotion for use in bad health risks. But legalize trees, legalize leaves, and legalize teas. That's all I'm saying. They made those illegal 115 years ago, 110 years ago. That starts with evolutionists and KKK. Yes, and I said those in the same statement. The white supremacy and all that stuff, that doesn't come from Christianity. Christianity says we're one human race, from God, Adam, and Eve, and from Noah's family after the flood. And God created different ethnicities, not different races. It's different ethnicities, not different races. By language, when he changed the language, it wasn't skin tone. But when people spoke, Ham's family moved south below the equator at the Sahara Desert, according to language. But when you live there a few thousand years before Christ, and we're not moving around much because we don't know we can learn each other's languages, you got to be around people you can understand when they say, he fell and broke his leg, I need help. I've done that. And nobody could understand. I was living in Florida, and nobody could understand me because they don't speak English. I couldn't get help. So people stayed in the same quarters until they started learning different languages. And everybody can't do that. I'm not smart enough, literally. I don't have the talent myself of learning another language and remembering it well. I know a little Spanish, and I remember some of the curse words because they're funny to me. And I remember a few other words. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? So, but I can't keep up with what they do. And I've had friends that speak it, but they love speaking their language in front of people. And they're so fast, you can't learn anything at that speed, even if you're smart. Maybe some can. But if they know it better than me. But what it was, I taught 1 and 2 years of taking Spanish. Mostly, we didn't have practice. We just learned grammar, how to break down sentences, the nouns, verbs, what do you call it? I forget what, it's been so long since I've done grammar. Diagramming sentences, is that what they called it? Learn that stuff. That's not gonna help me remember how to speak Spanish in 11th and 12th grade. No knock on my teachers, but that's the the book system, how they were taught to teach us. But even though I'm not smart in that way, if I had learned at 3 or 4 years old, I could have learned both languages. But you teach, how many courses should a person take in learning different languages when they're young? Because you still got to learn math, you still got to learn science, you still got to learn history, and I would say take 3 or 4 courses in ethics, biblical ethics, that simplify things down to love God and love your neighbor, showing that the 10 Commandments are actually love your neighbor laws mostly, and simplify it. Jesus rose from the dead. We forgive people so we can walk in the Spirit, and so people can sense God's Spirit, fruit of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, goodness, meekness, gentleness, meekness, faith, temperance. Against such there is no law. That's a bigger voice that shares a lot more words than words do. So that's a lot more words. But it's like it's like better than millions of good words for somebody to sense the Spirit through forgiveness. And a lot of people still reject it, right? So they're choosing hell instead of God's godly peace. So anyway, I'm saying legalize trees, teas, and leaves. And when you have a tea, it has 2 leaves in it? I may have mentioned that. And I still say, and then you can still promote abstinence. If I had children, I wouldn't want them to do chocolate. I wouldn't want to ever introduce them to chocolate, coffee, or caffeinated teas. Maybe some diuretic teas I wouldn't. But if it came down to saying, I would want it to be associated in their mind as a medicine. So when it comes down to, I can't think of which ailment I would think it's good for. Do they need a diuretic? I might give them a tea as a medicine, as the first thing before I'd ever want them to have a pill. Tylenol. So you learn nutrition, and then when you look at medicines, you learn about them. I know you learn the body when you study nutrition. You get into exercise. You learn what it feels like to feel really good and have an uncluttered mind. So too much medicine can clutter your mind. You have withdrawals, you have crankiness. And through withdrawals, people get on medicine and they get angry. Well, they might be an angry type person already. And or less conscientious about if somebody angers them. So people do agitate people and anger them. So if you get angry and you're not sober, you could go overboard. But most of the time people get angry because there's pain coming off of a pain reliever. And so addiction, there's a lot of tricks, but that's why the Bible warns about it, but it doesn't call it a sin, because we are not in heaven. You are not perfect. And all these people who pretend to be, that's not a godly thing. It's just not when they're just competing and using it to demonize one sin, because their sin is pride a lot of times, and sometimes there's a hidden pride. Pride is these 16 things doth the Lord hate is a Bible verse: a proud look, a lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood, proud look, and feet that be swift to run. To mischief, I think. And I've wrestled with that at times. Feet that be swift to run to mischief. I've probably wrestled with a proud look, trying to live up to having a proud look. I've never been good enough, thank goodness. I've never been good enough to establish the proud look thing. Well, I have in the past. I did everything I had to do to look good. And when I was young, and I was doing all the right things. And that didn't get me a girlfriend. What gets you a girlfriend or boyfriend or a husband is spending time with them, frankly, and getting to know each other. And then the main thing you want to look for is, can you get along? Are they peaceable? And before that, if you're Christian, that they're Christian, you want to, that needs to be believable that they really trust God. But trust in God is not measured by how good of a student you are, or how good of an athlete you are, if you're the fastest worker. If you want to do those things as a true believer, you're doing it to redeem the time so you can share, so you can have time to pray. You want to get work done fast so you have time to sit and pray, those kind of things. Study the Bible, meditate, ponder the world, maybe learn politics because you want to love your neighbor and be able to teach and share and tell them good things, and it helps people out of slavery. You should view people enslaved by drug cartels as slavery, because the worst thing about drugs, this is another one, another zinger. And I'm not trying to say hate on drug dealers the way you hate on drug addicts. I don't think you should hate anybody, and I don't even agree with calling these killers monsters and all that. Maybe if I'm angry, I'll say it, but they're human beings. They sinned, they gave in to anger and hate, and decided also had pride and think that they have a right to kill somebody. Sometimes, well, when you go to war, it's justified. It's an agreement, though. So these guys have been taught, some have been taught to go to war and start killing people when they have a free ability to do open dialogue, which reminds me, too. I don't buy into all the stuff that Fox News says and does. Most of it, I agree they're trying to do some good things, but I naturally am deceived. When I'm trying to do good, you're dealing with spiritual warfare. When you're walking in the Spirit, you do deal with spiritual warfare. So you're trying to do good, be blameless, so people will hear the words you say if you have something good to say, and so you're able to help people and give them encouragement. I mean, the best thing you can do is encourage them so they can help themselves, to help them help themselves and be confident in the things they need to do that are good, wise moves, So, but we've been trained that if somebody fell into adultery or something else, that they can't have a voice anymore. That's silencing the freedom of speech. So if somebody wants to know about that stuff, sometimes they'll call that hypocrisy. That's not hypocrisy. That's a carnal Christian or somebody that fell or whatever. But what hypocrisy is me pretending to believe in Jesus, and some people can actually believe, doing all these right things, and then even being married and never having drunk a beer in their life and all that, and that reputation. And you got Fox News and certain people trying to act like that's the only ones who are good enough to be a Christian. They're the only ones that have a right to be a Christian. No, they don't. You don't have to be anything. You just have to literally trust God, and you're going to speak up. You're going to speak up where you are at some point. And so I've also heard them act like it's bad to be on social media, and you're not doing anything because you're not out here talking in real life to people and this and that. I've talked to people in real life, not with bodyguards and stuff. And in most circles I'm in, either they don't want to talk about any of that, the politics or religion, even in religious circles, or they're going to shut me up and kill me or whatever in the streets, and everybody agrees not to talk that stuff. They end up agreeing because they've been trained that the fight will start and ensue, and you'll be injured or killed. And that's through the homeless circle shelters and stuff. But I've taken chances and spoken up, or I wait for the opportune time to do it and think, okay, it just has to be spoken here. I don't care what happens. I have to speak up at this time. I don't do it much. I don't get to do it often when I've been in those situations, but people learn, okay, he has these stances. Then some of them have been taught, oh, that's a crazy person because he believes in Jesus. If he believes in Jesus, he must be racist. He's white and believes in Jesus, he must be a racist. But then I'll get kicked off of Facebook if I say, no, real racism. I've been threatened to be kicked off Facebook the last 3 years. Not as much now, but I haven't spoken on the subject. It's my favorite subject, really. Drugs is as a subject. This is not drugs, but evolution. Speaking against evolution is my favorite subject. About one of them. I think it's the biggest problem. I think it's why we have sabotaged drug laws. But evolution is real racism. somebody who believes in Jesus truly believes his power of rising from the dead validates the power of God. It shows us, validates in our evidence banks that he had the power to make Adam and Eve, and the power of the flood at Noah's time. And so we all came from Noah's family after the flood, and that disqualifies evolution right there, because it can't take that long to evolve. So in a sense, Noah's family started out just like Adam and Eve after the flood, almost like Adam and Eve. They had their 3 sons and their wives before the flood, and they all got in the ark. I forget how many people exactly, but we all came from them. The same root, one human race. Simple. That's not racist. That means I believe in one race. If you believe in 2 races, you're racist. Now, there's a lot of people that don't even have that language down. I've tried to teach this for so long, and nobody cares and thinks it's no big deal in the religious communities. And I'm like, y'all can't talk Bible? And you want me to go to your church to what? Silence me? Because you're scared of Democrats? You've been brainwashed by the television into thinking you can't talk religion and politics, and then you accept, go to church on Sunday. That's it. And if you don't go to church, you can't be a Christian. That's the only religion and politics they can talk. A lot of them, right? That's it. Not love your neighbor, not thou shalt not steal. But they're also brainwashed. The one thing is, thou shalt not do drugs. If they do drugs, you can steal from them, you can extort them, you can do anything. And they agree with that because drugs are evil, drugs are the bad thing. And so that's a lie. Drugs are medicines. They are a medicine. But they haven't created safe forms of those medicines. And they've poisoned them. They don't label them. They don't regulate them. They allow for thieves to deal them. I'm going to have to go. I got to go.